joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot, presented by our good friends over at Little Caesars Pizza, where Stay Hot, they're staying ready with some hot and ready pizza for you all NFL season long. We're, of course, going to be talking about NFL Week 7. A lot of interesting matchups happened today. A lot of teams were on upset watch or got upset today. I was about to post not record predictions, but just like game predictions for the day, and I'm glad I didn't because I would have gotten like almost all of them wrong. But before we hop into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. I got a haircut, as those viewing on YouTube can clearly see. It's pretty short. Yeah. Maybe the shortest my hair has ever been.
Shortest really? I've seen it.
Well, not when you were like a baby.
Not when you
when he was a newborn.
What's that?
Yeah, when you were 1 day old, it was shorter.
That screenshot of Adam Ruins Everything, where his
actually,
when you first came out of the womb, your hair was way shorter.
I love Adam Conover. He's so funny.
Since then, I think my hair has always been longer than it currently is. So very exciting.
Isn't it freeing?
Oh, my head is so light. You guys don't know what it's like to have hair that goes down to like...
No, I don't, because even currently right now, you can't see my hair at all.
No,
but I can't stand my hair to get anywhere close to as long as yours was. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's in your eyes all the time. It's like always brushing against the back of your neck. Personally, I think that that's just kind of my signature look. I think I look a little more devil may care that way. But... can't stay that long forever, so I chopped it off, and it will also complement my Halloween costume.
Ooh.
Oh.
So, bonus.
I know that I can tell you one of my Halloween costumes will be a repeat of last year.
Going as Darth Vader for the 10th consecutive year.
Hey now. I went as Jimi Hendrix back-to-back years.
Dude, you and me should be Tom and Jerry.
I will order mouse ears tonight.
It could work.
Yeah, Theo, I see you also updated your albums behind you.
I did update my albums. I got a Suburban Lawns, got some Daft Punk, got some LCD sound system behind me. A lot of change. I got this Mad Villainy cassette for $6.
That's cool.
So... yeah, all huge things happening at the THEO Ash NFL household.
So huge. Matt, I think are you still back home? You went to the Ohio State game.
We can see my camera right now. I'm still back home. But it's kind of stylized, so we're rolling with it today. The clips are gonna be ugly on TikTok.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll get some extra comments, like a little extra engagement. I did, however, I did go to the Ohio State versus Penn State game. Banger. Ohio State's defense is mega legit. Their cornerbacks, legit. Even with... What'd you say, Theo?
I said mega legit?
Mega legit, dude. Denzel Burke out. It didn't make a difference. They got 2 or 3 guys who can play. Sonny Styles had a fantastic game. He had a pass breakup that was called. Just over. I don't know. Their defense was just nuts. I will say that Drew Aller throwing an out route, it's ugly stuff. Penn State's offense, I was worried they were going to be able to just churn out a bunch of long drives. They went 1 for 16 on third downs. I've never seen anything like it. And the one they got was in garbage time. They were like 0 for 15 at one point.
Yeah. I don't even think the Browns are that efficient on third down defense this year.
But this is the best Ohio State defense I maybe can remember. I don't remember the last time it was anywhere close to this good. Maybe when they were winning national titles. Maybe 2019 was close. But this is just a complete defense. I think all their starters are NFL players. McCord up and down game, but it was awesome. I was glad to go. I was super pumped. It was a perfect game. Weather was perfect. Like the seat next to us, it was almost an entirely packed stadium, but the seat next to us was open. So we got a little extra leg room. It couldn't have gone any better.
Meanwhile,
if I
I was
remember
at
correctly with Ohio State defenses, like the era of like when we went Bosa brothers, Chase Young, and like Malik Hooker was there. Like the secondaries and the pass rushes were good, but were the linebackers terrible? Was that like era?
No, the linebackers weren't terrible. They had
Okay.
Jerome Baker and Raekwon McMillan.
That's true. Yeah.
They've had linebackers.
Okay. That was the recent years then of just like awful linebacker play.
Yeah, it's been rough recently.
the tough Borland years.
Yeah.
There's
Send him up the pipe, have him flip his hips.
Yeah.
But Jim
Theo,
Knowles
you were
deserves a lot of credit.
Theo, you were at Packers Broncos, the battle of mid.
Worse than mid, I fear. We'll get into that later.
We will. Losing to the Broncos is not. I assume you went to that game because you thought you might be able to win it. But
Well, I went to it because it was in Denver, which is where I live.
oh yeah, I guess that's fair too.
And the Packers don't come here that often, so I had to see it. I wish it was a couple years ago when Denver versus Green Bay would be a marquee matchup, but it was so funny. Fans were yelling at each other. It's like, bro, we both suck.
I go. What are you guys yelling about? Like
you suck, bro. You suck. Can we come together as a class of fan in the league?
Yeah, what are you guys, both 2-5?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the Packers are 2-4. Let's not lump us in with these 2-5 teams. We're 2-4.
Could be worse.
And you were 2-3 coming in today. You almost had a winning record. You were almost 500.
Hey, look, the season's not over, but we'll get into that later. Let's talk about the noon slate.
The noon slate. Well, I think the two big matchups to talk about there are both in the AFC North, being the Browns game and the Ravens game. I obviously watched the Browns game as I always do, rocking the Josh Cribbs jersey today. And the one thing I want to just throw out there, because I felt like I couldn't really enjoy this victory because at the end everyone was complaining that the Colts got robbed with two awful penalty calls at the end.
They did.
They did not.
They did.
They turned the ball over 4 times and had a field goal blocked.
Have you ever said that the Browns got robbed by the refs?
No, because they haven't won enough games.
Right, exactly.
Or I guess they've never lost.
That doesn't make sense. You only get robbed by the ref if you lose.
Yeah,
I believe
they haven't been close enough.
I believe exactly last week you said that the refs were robbing them.
Yeah, no. Listen.
No, I think this is a totally. I think this is a totally. I said bogus take.
I said the Browns. I was like, the Browns had, what was it? 13 penalties. The 49ers had 12. And at the end of the game, the Niners fans were like, we got robbed. And I was like, the Browns had more penalties than you, and we're getting just as hosed in the
Blaiden,
first half.
I have known you like my entire life. Come on, man. What? You say the Browns. You're really telling me you don't say the Browns get robbed by the refs? You really honestly.
Like, as a joke, I will. But if we're being so serious,
I don't accept that. I don't accept that for a second.
I promise you,
the Colts got robbed at the end badly.
If the first penalty was a penalty,
what the fuck even happened? I didn't watch this one.
Okay,
so can we set the stage here for
Theo,
poor me?
While I'm setting the scene, feel free to go and look at the Browns' last two, or like those 2 penalties at the end. There's an illegal contact on what would have been a game-ending ticky-tack. It's a penalty. On what would have been a game-ending turnover, right? Like, PJ Walker gets hit, ball flies backwards in the air, like fumble, would have ended the game easily. Amari Cooper's running like a deep out route, stems inside, just like stems into the receiver's frame, generates contact, comes out of his break. They throw the flag because he got grabbed because the guy got beat. He flipped his hips and like reached around Cooper to like try and regain leverage, and like that's a flag.
Okay.
The next penalty was, so that got them a first and goal, and it negated what would have been a game-ending turnover. So like I can Matt, it's a little bit ticky-tack, but it is a penalty.
It was incredibly light contact. Cooper like ran through his arms, if I remember correctly. The second one was entirely bogus.
The second one was bogus. There was a pass interference.
It was like 10 yards in the air,
to against Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Wembanyama's not getting this one, and they called it catchable.
I saw the Nico tweet. Wembanyama was not getting that.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did. He's like, Wembanyama's not getting a hand on this ball. Great minds think alike, yeah. Yeah, I mean, ball sails way over, and they call pass interference. So that, I don't think that should have been a penalty. But, like, my point of, like, they turned the ball, like Myles Garrett had 2 strip sacks in the first half and blocked a field goal. They threw an interception to Denzel Ward. And it's
no game comes down to just the penalties. Like you can get hosed at the end. It's happened to everybody that their favorite team loses on a bad call, and you do get hosed by the ref. But there's a reason it was close in the first place. And if you let teams hang around, you open yourself up to that possibility. I'm wondering, as someone who was not able to catch this one, how did the Colts score this many points on the Browns defense? Did Minshew play super well? Or
it was mostly just like the Browns secondary had like their worst game I've seen them play in like several years. There were multiple just like huge touchdown plays.
There's like one with just like a bunch of like really bad missed tackles. Like it was bizarre. I also thought my takeaway is that the Browns front, their defensive 4 on the line, very good. Their linebackers, no. And if you can get past the line, you can break off big runs. I don't think overall the Colts had like a super, super efficient rushing game. I'm sure the average is like nothing crazy. But
4-2, I think.
Because I think there was a lot of like Garrett makes a big play or whoever makes a big play. And they can stop him short. But there's a good number of chunk running plays because I just don't trust those linebackers to be where they needed to be.
Yeah. The linebackers are just not the most physical bunch. They can fly around and make some impact plays, but when it comes to taking on contact or like JOK is small, you know, so. I guess I didn't watch, but
and Grant Delpit has been our best open field tackler this year. He had easily his worst game so far this year. He led up, I think, 2 touchdowns. One to Josh, the first one to Josh Downs was just a busted coverage by him, and then Minshew ran one in where, I mean, he just got juked out of his shoes a little bit, which it was kind of like a triple option play. So like it was. Like it's a tough play to make, but still, like it's Gardner Minshew. You got to make that play.
And what happened with Watson? I thought he was back.
He came in. You go ahead.
Yeah, I mean he was in the game, horrible, and then he took a pretty bad hit, and it looked like he was in concussion protocol. But they're saying he
snapped his
shoulder.
Head back on a hit where he like landed on his back and it like bounced off. But before that, I mean, he was just throwing like ducks. I mean, he threw one interception and he came this close to throwing another, but the guy didn't complete the catch to the ground. I mean, these were like on broadcast angle, you can't tell at all what he was trying to do type stuff. So, I mean, it was ugly. Did he complete a pass?
I don't
know. No, he did not. He had a 0% success rate.
Yeah, I'm getting like the Baker Mayfield vibe of like when Baker hurt his shoulder and tried to play through it. And everyone was like they're like, oh my God, Baker's playing so bad. And like Watson is playing bad and Baker was playing bad. But like to some extent, you are hurting your team. You are hurting yourself. You are hurting your like the people's perception of you by continuing to play instead of just like taking the rest and healing and getting better.
So it sounds like Myles Garrett won this one by himself.
It was a lot of Garrett, man.
Kind of.
It was Garrett. Yeah. Garrett was just a total beast. I mean, he how many points did he swing himself alone?
Like 13.
Probably. Yeah, I mean,
I think maybe even more. Like,
I mean, you can count 10 points. Blocked field goal and a strip sack in the end zone. So there's just nothing they could do about him, and they move him around so much and all that stuff. And I mean, he's got as much freedom as ever, and he's got as good players by him as ever. So it was just a mix of everything. It's typical Garrett stuff.
Yeah, he's a monster, man.
I don't know how you could create a better pass rusher in a lab. It is just wild to even look at him on tape and just press pause before the play even goes and just look at everybody on the Browns defensive line, which is an amazing defensive line with a couple impact players. And Garrett is just noticeably huger than all of them. And then he also moves better than any little speed rusher. Like Nick Bonito is the first guy that comes to mind as like just pure bend the edge speed rusher type of guy. And Garrett can do everything he can do while also all the power and also all the moves. I mean, he's just a perfect pass rusher.
It's like, I mean, that guy's like 270 and he jumped over the offensive line to block a kick today. I mean, what more can you say
That's
than
like
that?
Troy Polamalu was doing that at like 100 pounds lighter.
I don't think that there's a better athlete in the entire league than him. It would be like if Derrick Henry had Chris Johnson's speed. Like, that's seriously what it's like. I mean, the bender on the edges is as good as anybody.
He won today mostly with speed.
Yeah.
When he would get, like, there was a play, the strip sack in the end zone was literally, he just ran past the tight end and then he ran past the tackle. And
I mean, that's typically what I think of him as, is like, I mean, he can do everything, but the most dangerous thing about Garrett to me is like the get off and bend around the edge.
Yeah. And I saw like a Steelers fan commented, like I posted the video and a Steelers fan commented like, why did no one like, how did they not touch him? And I'm like, I mean, really? They either didn't see him or they're just afraid. Like,
I think a lot of it is, I thought the one that he got in the end zone may have been like a little bit of a miscommunication. It seems like the tackle kind of wasn't ready for it. But a lot of that also comes down to, it's like the mid-tier tackles of the NFL don't have Garrett's get off and they don't have Garrett's foot speed. And when he gets a really good release off the line and he's really just gunning it, man, it just looks like he just goes around them. He's just able to get right by him.
Yeah, he has more sacks before his 28th birthday than anyone else, is the stat I saw today. More than Reggie White, more than Derek Thomas, more than Bruce Smith, more than J.J. Watt. That's a pretty elite list to be at the top of.
Where does T.J. Watt rank in that?
I don't know where Watt ranks in that. Is he older than 28? I think of him as being he's 29, so he's not on that list.
Wow. Yeah, and T.J. Watt has a lot of sacks.
Yeah, I mean, when he was 27, he was at 72. If you count his age 28 year, he was at 77 and a half. And Garrett is at 81.
Wow.
He's a lock Hall. Like, if he retired right now, he'd have a pretty solid Hall of Fame case. I don't know if he'd quite get in like first.
He doesn't have the Defensive Player of the Year thing yet, though.
He's due. He's due.
So
And this was a
very due
performance that warrants plenty of consideration. It sounds like, because it was pretty historic from what I was seeing.
I was fully prepared. After the first quarter, I was like, "Yeah, we're not winning this game." Like if our defense isn't playing, like the offense is, I'm like, the offense I don't expect to be good at this point. But if the defense is bad too, like, we're not winning this game. And that's kind of just how I felt for most of it. And then I was like, oh, okay, Garrett's just going to win this game for us. That's cool. Like, I'll take that. Like, if the secondary wants to fall apart, yeah. I mean, I don't think that'll be indicative of how they always play, but I mean, they got
a win is a win is a win.
A win is a win. We take them when we can.
We take them.
And yeah, we're same
still
spot
on
as we
track.
were before in the yeah. I mean, we're 4-2, and the AFC North is brutal as ever.
With Watson playing so bad though, and now injured, it's still tough to see. Like, as good as Garrett can play, it still feels
PJ
all
Walker's
for naught.
Like, PJ Walker's not great. Like, PJ Walker's not playing like super high level. He made like one good throw all day, I think. The one to Elijah Moore on the right sideline. But like, outside of that, he just doesn't really do it. It's really rough.
I mean, he's PJ Walker, Philip Walker. Like,
yeah,
he's a backup. Like, he's not a.
I've seen a lot of people say we should try and get Brissett back. I wouldn't be opposed to that idea. At least we can hit the.
You know what? Other teams are not going to trade away their veteran backups because other teams consider what if their starting quarterback gets hurt, whereas the Browns did not consider this and traded away Dobbs.
Neither did the Bengals, man.
No, it's tough how the DTR situations turned out there. And I think there's a pretty hard limit on what they can do with Walker.
I almost wonder, do you give him another shot?
No. I don't know.
No?
I mean, Walker is a lot better than DTR. And while you're actively trying to win games, I don't think you can just throw him back out there and hope it goes better.
Do you know who the third quarterback is in Washington? No one. It's no one. It's there isn't a third quarterback.
Is Kyle Allen or somebody on their practice squad?
Kyle Allen is on the Bills, if I remember correctly. So
because they got Kyle and Josh, right?
Yes. So it's not just that easy to get Brissett away. If it was, the Jets should have gotten him a long time ago. It's.
So, what about
it's a crippling quarterback situation unless Watson turns it around, which we've been saying for a long time. So,
what about Kirk
Cousins?
He already said that he's not going to leave.
Kirk. First of all, he loves Minnesota. Second of all,
Cleveland is just like Minnesota. I swear, you won't notice a difference.
Maybe, I guess it is still kind of the Midwest, but Kirk would not take a 10-game rental, move his whole family to get out of a place he loves.
What if we could guarantee him a Super Bowl?
What if?
I guess that's fair.
I guess then he would probably come. But I don't think that there's really a move to make. The trade deadline's in a week. Kirk isn't going anywhere. It's pretty bleak. Andrew tied to Watson. Like, how much? Kirk.
Yeah, but we still have a lot of cap space to work with this year, right? So we could take on the rest of the contract this year, and then because we restructured Watson's deal.
And I could be an Olympic snowboarder. It's possible.
Anything is possible.
Enough about the Browns. I want to talk about a better team. Matt has his hand raised like a school.
Oh, I was wondering if maybe that was an Easter egg and the gears were turning, but I won't say any more.
I don't know what that means. Let's go to the Ravens.
Oh, I thought you were hinting at your Halloween costume.
No, that's just the impossible. The first very difficult thing to accomplish that came to my mind.
Leave your comments.
I'm not
leave
crazy.
Your guesses though in the comments as to what you think Theo's Halloween costume will be.
I think he's gonna be an alien, or a zombie, or a ghost.
I feel like he's definitely gonna be one of the guys in like that thread of people that he looks like. I think.
Yeah, that really narrows it down.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a white guy. I am gonna be a lanky white guy. I will give you that hint.
A lanky white guy. Will
Just
you be
like
Joe
I am
Flacco?
every day. I could be. I could be anybody. I could be Matt.
You couldn't be me.
I couldn't be you. I could not be you. I would get in a lot of trouble.
But yeah, let's talk about
the Lions
the
collapse. Let's talk about how the Lions are no good.
They're frauds.
I think that the main story from the Lions versus Baltimore game was the play of Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
He was
top 3.
Yeah, he was top 3. I mean, he might be top 1 right now in terms of on the MVP leaderboard. It's pretty spectacular stuff today. The pocket presence was impeccable. He just did not care about the pressure. And the line did a good job protecting him. But even when the pressure did get home, there was plays where the pocket was so constricted. I mean, he had 3 square feet to move around, and he hung in there like nothing was wrong. Sometimes he even escaped from those situations and scored touchdowns. He has everything you want as a quarterback, and he has for these past couple of years. I just don't think that the team around him has quite been right, and I don't think the passing attack has been detailed enough to take advantage of that. But you've always been able to see that today everything came together. No dumb fumbles, no dumb drops. Lamar played especially good, and
the receivers, all the receivers gave you a little bit of something. Odell had some plays. Bateman had he had a couple. At least he had one where he really sold like a post and came back for a curl that I was super impressed on. Zay Flowers ate. And Mark Andrews did well. It's like that's the type of game that you're hoping to see.
On tight end
where it's weapons on weapons, and not anybody has to go out and have 200 yards or whatever, but everybody was giving you a little bit of something. And when you've got that going with the offensive line playing well and Lamar's creation ability or his ability to at least navigate a pocket until either an avenue becomes open or somebody downfield becomes open, you're going to be in great shape. And he's great at looking for both. He's never locked in on one thing. He's never too far gone, or he doesn't panic and just like sprint off like I think a lot of guys do when they're more mobile. So it was a great game, and Monken was in his bag.
Yeah, he was in his bag. Yeah, the red zone play calling got a lot of scrutiny last week, and it didn't work. It deserves some scrutiny, I think. But that first play where there was the design, I think it was 4th and 1, and they let, who was it, go? The defensive end, maybe it was Kaminsky. They let him go. Stanley released out, blocking for Lamar. Lamar is able to pull it and work around Kaminsky with blockers out in front. They scored. That was a really beautiful play call. And yeah, it really just came down to the passing attack and how good absolutely everybody was. Everyone lived up to their potential. And yeah, it's tough to poke holes in Lamar's game. His arm talent is crazy. It's top tier in the whole league, like the zip he can put on it. His arm angles are all like he can access, the sidearm stuff, whatever passing lane is there. Like he can kind of manipulate both his lower body and his upper body to like fit it through whatever window he needs to fit it through. And he's aggressive. He can make full field reads front to back. His pocket presence is good. Like he isn't this mobile guy who takes a ton of sacks all the time. Like
it was
what
really
more could you ask
today.
for? Sometimes maybe the accuracy leaves him a little bit, but in terms of a complete quarterback, Lamar has been top 5 for years. Since 2019, he's been elite, and that hasn't always showed in the stat sheet. And of course, the injuries have always been there. But in terms of skill set, quarterback skill set, the guys who can beat Lamar there's maybe 3 of them, maybe 2 of them, maybe 0 of them when he's playing at this type of level. So it was a fantastic performance against a defense that was performing amazing coming into the game.
Yeah.
They were at the top of the league in most advanced metrics.
Yeah, no question, man. I mean, I saw a lot of the same stuff. You kind of said most of it. I think we covered
Yeah.
it. He's really good at a lot of stuff, and he's just so crazy because it's like when you have a guy with that mobility, it's not even that like, oh, everything is open to him. It's like almost more. It's like everything plus, you know. It's a whole nother angle of the game, and they can scheme up stuff, and they get in the red zone and they scheme up that end around that he has where he keeps the ball and that's a touchdown, and that just stretches a defense out so much with a player who even in the passing attack is, you know, trying to make the defense cover everything. So it's that's why, you know, I had him in my top 3. That's why we think so highly of him. He's awesome.
Yeah, 21 for 27 today, 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. It doesn't get much better than that. On the other side, you had the Lions, and their offense looked awful. And I think that the Ravens defense and Mike McDonald deserve a lot of credit. McDonald has taken them to the top of the league in sacks. They're one of the better defenses across the board. And they're doing it without a lot of elite talent on the defensive line. I mean, they've got 90s Matabuke. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I always see the name on the back. Matabuke. I should know this.
Okay, but I could be wrong.
Okay. I know who it is, Ravens fans. I assure you, I just suck at names. He's like a very strong run defender. He had a sack today, a forced fumble, 3 tackles. Like, he is a extremely good defensive tackle. But in terms of like a Myles Garrett level difference maker, they don't have any of that. They're still at the top of the league in sacks because McDonald is such a fiend designing these pass rushes and simulated pressures. And the key to beating the Lions is pressuring Goff. No one can do it. It cannot. I thought maybe it could not be done because right now Goff is playing with elite pocket presence, or at least before this game he was. And it's just and Goff can be nervous. He's not a super like guy who likes to be in tight quarters or likes to escape or likes to be under pressure. But in Detroit, as was kind of the case in LA years ago with Whitworth and everybody like that, he just doesn't ever really feel like he is under pressure. And teams blitz him and doesn't work. Teams rush forward, doesn't work. Like you just can't pressure the guy. Like, you'd love to move him off of his spot, but you just can't. It's easier said than done. Yeah. And today it happened, and it was a very shaky performance from him. I don't know how many defensive coordinators can scheme it up like that and get that done. But it's still a, yeah, right. Schwartz could do it, I think. But do they play?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So I think the Lions will overall be fine. Like we said last week when we were predicting the playoffs, there's not that many more difficult. This was one of the few difficult games for Detroit on their schedule. Yeah. But as I've been yelling about on this podcast all year, is like, I just don't. You get into a team against the Ravens with all these.
I think a
few more
Eagles,
stars and
who could really get some pressure and have some talent on the defensive line. There's definitely concerns.
And the corners were bad today for the Lions.
Yes, I was about to say. And it's like the Ravens were doing cool stuff, and it was a lot of scramble drill, and it was a lot of good play design, but also like the receivers were winning a lot of reps, you know, like Odell and Bateman and Flowers and Andrew. Everybody was winning reps. And it's definitely a big concern for them. Their defense is not without holes. I mean, as a whole, the defense played pretty rough. I mean, no aspect
it's not
of the defense was.
Yeah, the pass rush wasn't there, and then the corners couldn't cover.
And they also their run defense wasn't that great, and yeah,
that's kind of all aspects of playing that side of the ball.
Playing defense, in the NFL. But
yeah, to me, it's just I've said so much about the Lions, and I think it all just kind of got proven true. Not that they, and I say not that they can't improve, but I just don't know where it comes from. I don't love Jameson Williams. I know last week he had the big touchdown, but I thought he had more bust plays than good ones.
Jameson Williams had 6 targets for 0 catches.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been like, how many total catches does he have so far in his career? I know he's missed a lot of time, but he's at least played 6 or 7
Not
games,
many.
right? He maybe has.
I think what are over 50% of his catches touchdowns in his career?
It might be.
It might be, dude. I mean, we talk about Quentin Johnston, like, oh, he's only averaging like 1 catch a game or like 2 catches a game. Dude, Jameson Williams is doing the exact same thing, and nobody is talking about it. And he was a higher draft pick.
Yeah, and they traded up.
That's right.
Did
they
any of us
traded up
have,
from like 32 to 1 because they had the Rams draft pick from Stafford after they won the Super Bowl.
I don't think any of us were big fans of Jameson coming out of the draft.
I don't remember being too big of a fan of his. The speed was obviously nice, but he, in terms of nuance, like you need more than speed. That is.
I vaguely remember somebody betting their life on him being drafted as the number 1 wide receiver. But
I thought he'd get drafted.
Don't believe that was
that was me. I thought he was going to be the first receiver taken. I really, when his ACL, like.
But that was because of like the media reports, right? Like,
yes, that was more because of media hype.
Yeah,
and I just thought fast guys like always get taken super high. I wasn't. Garrett was my number 1 receiver in that class, and then I think it was
he was all
Garrett.
Of ours. No, I wasn't.
Yeah, we were all Garrett
what
fans.
You thought.
I think we were all like Garrett, and then London.
Yeah, we all liked London,
and then I liked Pickens.
You liked Pickens, yeah.
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember who else was in that class. Dotson.
Olave.
Yeah, that was the other one. Who are we forgetting?
I thought Olave was like. I didn't think Olave would be as good as he is, but I don't know.
Well, he's kind of like.
I liked Burks more than Jameson,
yes.
which was not. Which is a mid-off.
I mean, Burks plays more and
Burks is better. I'd rather have him. I'd rather have him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been better, though that's not saying much.
Yeah, I just don't know where.
I really do think with the Lions, their receiving core is not bad. We were talking about this the opposite way, and maybe now this is just bias now that they've lost, but like it's not bad, but they don't really have a second guy who really scares you in any way outside of
Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra.
Laporta is kind of that, but there just needs to be some explosiveness. And I think Goff, like, if you can find a way to get past the line, and it's, like I said, it's easier said than done. It might be a long time before we see a team do what the Ravens did to them today. But to me, it just is a good team, a team that is a cut above anyone in the NFC North, obviously, at this point. But this like Super Bowl contender stuff, I never bought into it. And today I just thought they got totally outclassed by a team with a ton of talent, like a real Super Bowl contender in the Ravens when they are clicking like this. So there's not a lot of teams that can beat the Ravens when they're clicking like this, but the Lions aren't one of them. And I thought it was always pretty obvious when you looked at the depth chart, but
yeah, I mean, if the Ravens play like they did today, I mean, they beat a pretty consensus top 10. Some would say a top 5 team in the NFL, and they crushed them. Like, it was never close. I mean, they would be. Yeah, it was an annihilation. If they played like this in the playoffs, like they would absolutely win the
Lamar plays like this all of the time. They'll never lose, man.
I mean, Lamar plays like this most of the time. It's just the rest of the team doesn't always play like
Even this was a special performance from Lamar. But I agree. Yeah. Like, Lamar always does play like pretty well. No dumb fumble, no stupid fumbles from Lamar himself too. Lamar is not above a stupid fumble this year, especially that first week. I believe he was basically bowling the ball for felt like. But it was look, it's no secret that I like the Ravens. I like Kyle Hamilton. I love Odell and Bateman. They've built a team out based on my big boy. Like, I love Travis Jones. I love, a lot of the players on that team. J.K. Dobbins, who's hurt now, so it's no secret that we love the Ravens. And
I can't
it's good to
hardly
see
watch them because of that, man. I just can't think about anybody else other than J.K. should be out there.
That's why I didn't watch the Colts game today. Is like I can't stomach watching this team without Richardson.
They almost won without Richardson. That's what's fucked up, man.
I know.
The narratives would have been, they don't even need him. Gardner's better.
Gardner has not been better in the games that I have watched. Maybe he balled out today, like for real.
He had a couple of nice throws, but like, don't get strip sacked 3 times.
Yeah, it's
like
that's not good. Moving to the 3:00 window, perhaps. The Patriots played in this window. Zone. I want to talk about the Patriots real quick. Just in terms of how they won, if you didn't watch this one, it was just a pretty typical we're outgunned and we still won the game plan. And usually when that's the case, it's not through bombing it down the field or passing it all over the yard. Like, I feel like if you are overmatched, you've just got to take it one play at a time and you've got to hit the easy ones. And that is what they were able to do today. There was no Mac Jones rolling out, throwing it across his body to the other side of the field late and it gets pick-sixed like there has been these past couple of weeks, just like head-scratching decisions. It was a lot of stuff underneath. It was a lot of end arounds. They were able to get the run game going. It's really rough for the Bills without Milano and without Daquan Jones. There were some massive double teams that the Patriots got on Phillips that they were able to run behind. And then the defense just, I didn't think Allen played a very good game. Like, they were able to do all the little stuff and on offense. And if an offense is just doing all the little things and like staying on schedule and hitting field goals and doing all that, you can beat them if your offensive performance is like halfway decent.
Yeah.
But when your offensive performance isn't good, then that's where you get in trouble, when the other team is just executing the simple, easy stuff. And the Patriots defense broke out all the stops today. Blitzes, it felt like almost every play from all over the place. Corners, linebackers, combined with stunts. It was, I think, thought number 33 is that Mapu. He played a pretty good game. He was super disruptive. Jabril Peppers had a sick pick really early where in the apex triangle, he was kind of down low in the flat, realized that Josh was going to be aggressive, got a ton of depth. Josh should have taken the check down. He had time to do it. He tried to hit the corner. Peppers was right there. He saw it before it happened. And with that turnover, it was, 10-0. And then from there, it's just hold on for dear life. And Patriots were really able to do it with the variety of disguises and movement post-snap that they were able to throw at the Bills. And Josh has had some, I feel like his performances against the Patriots have been really up and down. Like, I feel like he has had some of the best games I've seen in his entire career versus Belichick.
The winter soldier game against the Patriots in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That game was generally.
And there was a game a couple weeks before against the Patriots that was also incredible. But this one felt like he was holding the ball a little too long. There were times where hot routes were open and he wasn't just hitting the top of the drop and getting the ball out when there were things there. It's kind of a superhero type game from Josh, which can be very good. It can be rough, and this was one of the rougher ones. And that's how the upset happened, basically. I don't know what. There's probably a lot more nuance that the All-22 can pick up, and I'll probably talk about it. But in terms of
Patriots
broadcast,
did get like a game-winning drive.
Mac played well, and Mac was playing well through the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. Like, it wasn't much down the field, and that is in part because of Mac's limitations and in part because of the limitations of the overall offense. But the first couple weeks of the season, I was like, okay, there's nothing down the field. but everything underneath is getting hit. Like, he's accurate in those areas. He's playing pretty well. The defense is playing well. Once the rough stretch is over, and like once they stop playing teams like the Eagles and the Dolphins and teams they were losing to at the beginning of the year, it's going to get better. And then Mac just totally fell apart, and the offense just totally fell apart. Like, not even the deep stuff wasn't there. Nothing was there. They couldn't run the football. The line was a disaster. Mac was making idiotic decisions. Like, this seemed like the type of game that I expected from the first 2 weeks of the year, where the defense is able to confound the quarterback and the offense is able to matriculate down the field enough to win a tight one against a really banged up Bills team. So maybe this can be the norm. I still like kind of believe that this wasn't a total fluke from the Patriots, but we'll see. They haven't given me much reason to be hopeful.
There's I think solid football games within Mac Jones, but ultimately, like, he's just not going to be mega consistent with it. He hasn't proven that he is, at least. And if Mac is not on his total, like, right read every time, get it done every time, little thing, it's going to be tough for the Patriots offense to do anything. There's very little room for him to be overly aggressive. Like, if he's really trying to push the ball or really trying to, get things going when they're not there, there's very little on the Patriots offense that's going to allow that to happen.
Right. It's been rough. They should be a solid team. They should really just be like a crafty, difficult to beat, like mid-tier wild card in the hunt contender.
They totally could be if they had done better with their weapons, man.
Even with their weapons, I still think that's on the table, and I think we saw that version of them today. But I don't know.
Like you said, Theo, the first couple weeks of the year, that's exactly what I'm like. This team is.
It's giving them fights, and they can beat the bad ones. They could be one of the best bad teams in the league. But
they were 1-3, and I'm like, this team is better than their record suggests. And they suffered like their 2 worst losses in franchise history. And then I'm like, okay, maybe this is one of the worst teams in the league. But they're kind of back to form. So maybe we'll just go back and forth. They'll play a couple like, okay, this is a feisty, competitive team, and then they'll get beat by 30. And then...
we'll see. The losses to the Saints and Raiders
in their schedule,
it was just
not overcomable.
Yeah, they'll play the Dolphins again next week. Commanders, Colts, Giants. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, maybe they are through some of the tough stuff. Still,
I don't know. They're not going to make the playoffs or anything, but I do think that this was like a return to form in like that tough, gritty team that can grind out some wins and be really feisty and beat anybody every week. But these last 3 weeks, they've been so terrible that they put themselves in a hole that teams like that can't really overcome. Like the Giants never had a stretch like that last year, and they were kind of that team last year.
Yeah.
And they were able to make the playoffs at 10 wins. Like the Patriots kind of took themselves out of that contention with their offense the last 3 weeks. So we'll see what it is going forward. I still believe that I think they can beat the Dolphins next week. I think that that's like a possible outcome. They got pretty close last week, but I don't think they can I don't think they can beat the Dolphins in terms of where they are in terms of record at the end of the year, which is what I thought could happen at the beginning. So,
yeah, they had Gonzalez last time too.
They did have Gonzalez last time.
They won't this time. But if we want to move into the midday window, I know, Theo, you were at Packers Broncos. Is there anything notable?
Every unit on the Packers is bad. And some of it is injury. Bakhtiari, the All-Pro, hurt. Jair, the All-Pro, hurt. It's tough to overcome that kind of thing, I think. Gary has been on a pretty severe snap count this entire year, and he's been super impactful when he's been in the game. But when he's not, it's Kingsley and Igbare, who has not been great. So the injuries have been brutal. And even this bye week, you would think like, oh, everyone was healthy. There was like 6 or 7 starters questionable going into this game. And some of them played, like Aaron Jones played a bit. Quay Walker played, but not very well. Elton Jenkins played, but not very well. Like it's a really snake bitten unit, and no one on the team is making any money. Like at least no one playing.
Because who are they paying? Aaron Rodgers. How much are they paying him this year? And like 60 million, but maybe it's not 60 million, but it's a lot.
So it's just mid across the board. And to me, the number one thing is Christian Watson needs to be a positive force when he's on the field. And if he's not that, it's very difficult. And these past couple weeks, targeting him has more often resulted in interceptions than big plays. And I think that there is a focus on, not so much this week, but the past 2, I think there was a bit of a focus on like trying to get him involved and trying to get him the ball. And sometimes shorter passes were missed because they wanted Watson down the field. And just overall, I think his addition, and this is not all on him. This is partially on Jordan Love as well, or maybe even mostly on Jordan Love. Maybe it's on the play calling, but it's just all kind of bad right now and disjointed. And it's a young team, and it just feels young. Dumb penalties, a false start on 3rd and 1 that put them in 4th and medium. You know, they were yards away from field goal range to win the game, and there's a totally unnecessary holding penalty on a QB draw. Like it's just stupid.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. And the talent can't overcome it.
You're describing the use of Christian Watson, and it reminds me of how the Browns have been using Marquise Goodwin this year.
This is not about the Browns.
I'm just
this is not like Marquise Goodwin.
It sounds a lot like Marquise Goodwin. So
how often is Marquise, if I'm going to look up Marquise Goodwin snap counts, okay, what do you think they're going to be?
I mean, they're not going to be exact. Like, they're not going to be super high as Christian Watson's have been. But I'm saying in terms of how they're trying to get him the ball, it's like, you know, the force feeding end arounds and the dialing up deep shots to him, even though they're double covered and
you
they
just got to get him the ball, man.
The thing about Marquise Goodwin, who has played 49 snaps this year, is that he is not an integral part of the offense.
He's not.
And Christian Watson is.
That is fair.
Like, Christian Watson should be the wide receiver 1, like a breakout season. It's you know, he ended the year last year.
That was strong. My point. Is that Christian Watson is supposed to be the wide receiver 1, but in reality he's Marquise Goodwin.
Yeah, I guess so. But until that connection starts to click, and until targeting Watson turns into not even zeros, but actual positive plays instead of negative plays, like, the offense just isn't going to be good. And the line couldn't get the ground game going until late in the second. They were eventually able to get some traction on the ground, but the first half there was absolutely nothing against the worst run defense in football. And I think that kind of comes down to the line. Jordan Love wasn't really asked to drop back to pass until later, and eventually they started to get things going. Like, there was a point in the game where I'm like, I feel pretty confident that we're going to get the ball and be able to drive down the field, because they drove down and missed a field goal, and they got a field goal, and they scored a touchdown. And it was like, okay, now the offense is moving, but they just started so slow. And it's just a talent issue. It's a talent issue. Love made some poor decisions. The offensive line is super banged up and loses one-on-ones. The Broncos were coming out in these 5-man fronts, bare fronts with three defensive tackles and 2 guys on the end. Takes away kind of that wide zone, makes it difficult to double team anybody. You know, the line wasn't winning those one-on-ones. The receiving core, like, the best guy hasn't really been able to get any kind of chemistry with the quarterback. And then on defense, they never sacked Russ. And the safeties are bad, and Ballantyne, the other corner, was getting picked on with Cortland Sutton, especially on 3rd downs. They'd just throw it to him and it would work. So it's like, none of the aspects of this team are any good. And I still think they're not going to be in the like Caleb Williams tiers of bad. Like, I still think that there is a gear that they can hit that it makes them at least truly mid and not bad. But if the injuries never get better, and if they're this banged up all year, it'll never come, and they'll just suck. And at least they have their first round pick. That's all I can say, which is something that some podcast.
Yeah, this is not about the Panthers either, man.
The Browns have the Browns don't either.
Yeah, but the Browns have a winning record, so
yeah, that's true. At least we have our first round pick, so that's. And I'll say this: if we pick really high, I think if they end with the number 1 or number 2 overall pick, and they have a shot at May or Caleb. I think
no chance that they're gonna end that high, man.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. They're pretty rough. I mean, to lose to the Raiders and Broncos back to back, it's bad. It's not good.
It's not great, but they play a very easy schedule. And
I like to think they'll be above the top 2. I don't really entertain the do we need to move on from Love conversation right now with such a cheap and snake bitten offense.
I'll tell you
he hasn't played well, but
I'll tell you this: they did not go through the whole Jordan Love ordeal for the last 3 seasons to punt on him after 6 games. And I'm a guy who
especially when the talent is
yes, especially in a very the receivers aren't great. I'm a guy who thinks teams probably take too long to move on from quarterbacks, but I think Love gets the 2 years before you talk about whether or not he gets a third, like pretty much every first round quarterback, even if he did sit.
Give him a fair shot.
Yeah, I think he's getting I don't think anything about his situation is necessarily unfair, and he hasn't been playing well, but I'm not quite on the this guy, I'm 100% convinced he can't play. I think he can play. I just think it's tough sledding right now. So I don't know. I think the Packers are bad, but you can't be good forever. So, and I still think the rebuild isn't without a little bit of promise still. We'll see though. This episode of Stay Hot is presented by Underdog Fantasy. You've heard of Underdog. You've heard the commercials. You've heard this ad several times at this point. It's time to check them out. You can use the code STAYHOT when you download the app, and they will double your first deposit up to $100. So if you put in 50, you'll get another 50, and there'll be 100 in your account. What can you use this $100 for? Well, anything. The baseball playoffs are in full swing. Game 7, Rangers versus Astros. We will be there. You can bet on who will have the better head-to-head matchup, Altuve or whoever the best player on the Texas Rangers is, or NFL game days, any game on the slate, any player you want. There's probably a prop of it on there. You can get into a fantasy draft. Even now in the middle of the season, you can draft a team. It's a lot of good stuff on the Underdog Fantasy app. And if you have not yet, download it, use code STAYHOT, and they will double your first deposit over $100 or up to $100, not over. That'll do it for this ad. See you next time.
Famously not over.
Yes, famously not over. Let me talk about Mile High Stadium as well.
Oh, go for it. I'd love to hear about stadiums. How was it?
It was a nice stadium. I thought it was kind of a steep stadium, which
I like steep stadiums.
Which means every seat in the house is pretty good. We were up kind of high, but on the 50-yard line, the all 22 seats. And yeah, the concourses were pretty nice. Stadium was outdoor. It was a nice day. The people around us were nice. It was not dirty. It was a good stadium. However, getting there, terrible. It's so bizarre. I took the H train to the nearest stop to the stadium, and then from there you've got to walk to the field, which is not too long of a walk. I mean, if there was nobody there, it would take you no time at all. But when there's tons of people, it takes a long time because all the pathways to get there are very narrow. They like box you in because there's like parking lots, and then there's like warehouses or some shit like all around you, and the pathways to actually get to the stadium are tiny. They're so small. And it's like, why aren't these bars, like if we're gonna have to walk this way, like a sports bar right here would be killer. Like you could sit here and, you know, pregame and then walk to the stadium, but it's none of that. You have to pregame downtown and then like go to like the industrial area and then like walk through that through tons of like narrow paths to get to the stadium. And getting out of there is like you have to cross everyone has to cross a narrow bridge. That's just, think about that. Like, just imagine what a bunch of football fans like getting out of the stadium crossing a bridge not that wide like would look like. It looks terrible. And then waiting in line for the train. It's just, I don't understand why the stadium, you can't get in and out of there efficiently. And that's my gripe with it. And it's a pretty substantial thing. Like you got to be able to, and to be fair, I've only been there once, and maybe there's a better way. Like longtime Broncos fans, like probably are like, oh, you got to take the back street and you got to come to the stadium from the north and it'll be way easier, something like that. But the most basic way that most of the people there were taking, incredibly difficult to navigate. More so than other stadiums, because every stadium is a little difficult to navigate, but this one was especially.
I was like, I feel like a lot of stadiums are kind of
a nightmare to get in and out of.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to the Browns game, I had to drive in.
When you went to the what game?
I know I've talked about the Browns especially.
This is your third egregious offense. This episode.
I know I talk about the Browns a lot, and I've talked about them especially a lot on today's episode. Okay, I'll give an example of when we went to Chiefs Chargers.
There you go.
And how that we were staying in like what part? We weren't staying.
We were staying in a luxurious hotel in Santa Monica.
We were Santa Monica. I was like, we weren't in Venice Beach. We were in Santa Monica Beach.
Yes.
And the stadium is in Inglewood, which is super far from like downtown LA. So getting there, I mean, if you don't,
there we had to drive along.
Yeah,
like you had to drive
there.
But getting in and out of there was not as difficult as this was. Like this, everyone
that's because
we
didn't have to drive, man.
I guess so. We had our producer Alex.
Yeah, our producer was chaperoning us. And he was like spending so long just trying to like get out of his parking spot.
It was still. I think it was still easier to this. Maybe Broncos fans can back me up.
Because you were just sitting in the passenger.
Getting into the shoe, 105,000 for a noon kickoff was it was a challenge for sure. But Blaiden, you're kind of right about the Browns stadium because half of it's facing a river, so it's all people from one side.
Exactly. You can't kayak up to the stadium. Damn. Well, it's not so bad if you live in Cleveland.
Have you ever tried?
It's not so bad. Have I ever tried kayaking into the Browns stadium?
Why couldn't you?
I don't know. I don't live in Cleveland, man.
I guess so.
I'll call Gab. I will call Gab after this episode and I will ask, can you kayak into the stadium?
Park your boat and then just leave. Is like the river ferocious? Would you say?
I don't know.
Isn't it on
I don't
live
in Cleveland.
Isn't it on a lake?
It's on Lake Erie, yeah.
Oh, that probably makes it more difficult.
So where are you going to
where are you kayaking? Where are you kayaking from? Okay,
across the lake.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If you live in Cleveland, like if you live in downtown Cleveland, very easy. Like it's basically like the Bengals stadium. Like it's downtown. You can walk there kind of no problem. There aren't like narrow walkways that you have to traverse to get through. But if you're driving into Cleveland, they block off every highway exit at like 10 a.m. for a 1 o'clock game. So, I mean, there is no getting into, like, you have to get off like 30 minutes away and then back road your way to get anywhere near the stadium. It's just a complete nightmare.
Sound good.
But I don't know. I feel like getting to NFL stadiums is just generally
it's
difficult.
just logistically difficult. I mean, these big ass parking lots and everybody's in their own cars. And that's the thing is, like, with the public transit, it's like if you're in a car and it's difficult, that's one thing. If you're taking the train, that to me is even more egregious, because it should just, like, if you're on foot, it shouldn't take you that long to, like, walk to the train. But even this was, like, not only car unfriendly, but public transit unfriendly. Like, it didn't just, I don't know. I thought it was, like, a pretty inefficient situation where, like, there were, like, fences and just people getting boxed in. Anyway, that's my gripe with the stadium. Actual stadium, food too expensive, drinks too expensive, but that's every stadium.
Normal expensive.
No real gripes with the stadium. So, but the getting to and from public transit was bad. But
yeah, I think that brings us to our Little Caesars game of the week, Sunday Night Football. It was expected to be a good one between the Eagles and Dolphins, and I think
it was not a bad game.
It was not a bad game.
No.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about how the Dolphins have not beaten a good team all year, though.
They haven't. Their combined record of beaten teams is terrible. I think they've beaten teams with like 6 wins combined. It's been the Panthers. It's been the Patriots.
The Chargers are carrying most of that too.
Yeah, it's been the Chargers who only have 2 wins, and we went through all of their flaws last week, and they gave them hell. I think that the Dolphins, their line is a huge issue.
Yes,
and
that's the big takeaway from this game, is that their line, the key to their run game is that they rely so heavily on misdirection to create everything. And the line itself, going up against top guys like the Eagles have, just doesn't have the juice. And if that's the case, McDaniel will just entirely stop running the ball. He so wants to get away from the run if it's not working.
I don't think that he's a run game. He would say that run game is his specialty. I think that would be what he would say.
He likes to get away from it. He will. And I'm not saying that maybe maybe he doesn't like to. Maybe that's the wrong word. But he did this last year where he just would completely stop running the ball. And I'm not saying he's wrong to do that. But he feels no need to. I mean, they had that one clip of him being like,
you can make him one-dimensional. Yeah.
Should we just pass it every play this drive? I think maybe he knows where, like, the best players on the team are, or the best players on offense are, and is just playing to that. Even though I'm not saying his run game isn't fantastic and his scheme isn't, but that's their fatal for an offense that is an all-time great offense. That's their flaw. That's their big thing. Their offensive line really isn't that good.
And they tried to get other ways to kind of almost manufacture like a run game. They did a lot of like quick screens out to Tyreek Hill and trying to get him open in space. But the Eagles they were clearly doing their tackling drills this week. They were so great in open field tackling, in open field pursuit. Like, I don't think they let a single like play really break to the edge. And I don't know the
Reddick
yards
had a monster
after
game.
Yeah, I don't know. Reddick was fantastic.
Reddick was a total beast. They had no answer for him. He'd been a little quiet this year, I think. It was a big show.
He was outstanding. And the defensive line, they've got their guys, Carter and Davis. I mean, it's a tough line to go against, but Reddick especially was fantastic.
Yeah, when he can kind of put an edge on everything, too. Like, they want to get to the perimeter, because this whole year they've wanted to get to the perimeter, because this whole year their interior offensive line has been rough, and it doesn't matter if you're, pin pulling or anything like that. And when you kind of have Reddick floating out there, because you can drop into coverage and he's just kind of out there, and you're trying to run a tight end at him, like he can do a little bit of everything. And that, like I said, made the Dolphins one dimensional. And then I thought there was a lot of bad luck for Miami in this game. Tyreek dropped a couple big ones. One bounced off of his knee and went into the end zone, and just kind of disorganized in general. A bunch of routes that ended up kind of in the same place on that Tua pick at the end.
Yeah.
Like, I don't quite know why there was such a party over on the right sideline there, but pretty easy for Slay to make a play on it. Two things happened. First of all, the receivers down the field weren't in the right place. Your spacing should never be that bad.
Talking about the Waddle and Mostert.
I'm talking about the pick at the end.
The
Greg Roman special.
End?
The one at the very end where Slay picked it off.
Yeah.
Like Tua, that was a bad ball from Tua, regardless of where the receivers were. But also the receivers were in the wrong place. And that happened kind of a couple times. And Tua actually hit a big play on kind of that exact same scenario earlier in the game. So I don't know, just drops and some weird spacing issues. And there was the face mask that didn't get called, and
that was a rough one.
It felt like they were kind of driving, but never could quite finish because of some bad luck, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot more than like, oh my God, the Eagles, they figured it all out. Like Tua will never play well again. Like, yeah, I didn't quite feel like that watching them, but it was a really good game plan in terms of like shutting down the run. And then AJ Brown is just that guy.
Yeah.
And their corners are all hurt.
Yeah, and the Dolphins' corners are all hurt. I agree with you. I don't think the Dolphins looked like totally meager or anything. I think the takeaways are the corners are bad, but they should be better. The offensive line is bad. And yeah, they can probably play better than that. They're a contender, but they got flaws.
Yeah, they're not perfect, but I guess when you look at the EPA per play, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad this week. So I'll have to go back and watch the film. It's kind of tough, like coverage-wise, what they're going to do. There was a lot of depth in the defense. Like they really kind of took away a lot of those big plays, except for the deep shot to Hill where he split the double team. Yeah. Overall, it was like kind of a roof on everything, and then Waddle got hurt. So without that and without the run game, you're kind of living on those intermediate throws, and everyone knows where they're going to be. And there were times where you'd see the linebackers just say shit and book it back to the windows that the Dolphins love to hit. And like everyone knows where they're going to be. I do think, the Dolphins are not a super team. That is to me the takeaway. Like as good as their offense has been, as big as the numbers have been, they haven't beat good teams. Tua to me is as turnover prone as any quarterback in the league right now, because the deep balls do hang and everyone has a shot at him. And once per game, it happens. Like you've got a shot at it. It's just like with Josh Allen, who everyone would say is probably the most turnover prone quarterback in the league. Like he will try to force something and you will get a shot at one. I feel the exact same way about Tua. And like, yeah, every single week there is a deep ball that hangs in the air. It's a total jump ball. And he's got 6 picks in 7 games? Like that's shaping up to be a lot. So between that and the line, and then we'll see what the defense looks like when then the corners come back healthy. Like they're not some super team that's just going to cakewalk its way to the title, but they're still like every team has its flaws. But they're a tier. They seem to be a tier below the Eagles, who are a tier below. I don't know who the Eagles are a tier below. I don't know who the tier 1 contenders are right now, but
I think the Eagles are a tier 1 contender still.
I think so, probably as well.
Like Eagles,
I think they've had a little bit of a wonky start, but if pretty much any other team, outside of the Eagles, had this start, we wouldn't be talking about them like
no,
they were
they are tier one contenders. To be able to pick up every 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1 situation, it cannot be overstated.
Superpower, man.
God.
I mean, how often does your team get in 3rd and 8? It happens a couple times per game. Every team has it, and for the Eagles to just be able to pick that up automatically, like it won them this game.
Yeah,
it's like every down is like 1st and 9. You know, as
first and 9.
Yeah, seriously, yeah, it's that not that alone, but I don't really think it can be overstated how important that is, that they can convert those with such a high rate of success. Like, teams find themselves in those positions about it too. All the time.
Yeah,
Sirianni.
They have no fear. They're like, well, if it's 4th and 1, like, we're going for it. We don't care where we are because we know we can get it, and they always get it.
They always get it, and they get it like again by a couple yards. Like 4th and 1, they'll get 3 yards on a QB sneak.
Yeah, it's often not even there's no doubt about the spot. They don't have to go to replay to go zoom in on where like Hurts might be. It's just like, oh yeah, the pile moved 5 yards there.
I mean, they probably have their next play called already. Like, they're in the huddle. They're like, yeah, we're gonna run, QB sneak, and then we're gonna line up and we're gonna run our next play. Like, we already have it ready. Like, it's.
Yeah, it's unstoppable. So they are tier 1 contenders, and that's a huge reason for it, honestly. And it should not be banned. It should not be banned because no one else can do it. No one else, like, I've seen so many teams try these past couple weeks.
I've seen, occasionally teams get it, but like,
it's a QB sneak,
the normal rate of QB sneak.
Yeah. It's not like it's some unstoppable force that always works for everybody. So yeah, I think that they should probably keep it around, and yeah, Eagles are real good. AJ Brown is my favorite wide receiver that I've ever watched. I will say that as well. Every play is huge, and it doesn't get better than that. Like,
he's really good.
Just an explosive play only type of receiver. Like, not a possession guy, not even really a speed guy. Like, he's fast and he can catch and everything, but he's just the strongest. And that's awesome. I love that. Like, I think that's such an underrated trait for wide receivers is upper body strength. And AJ Brown is my number one like example of that. Like, you cannot press him. You cannot tackle him. You cannot get hands on him down the field. Like, that's like everything. So it's like, what can you do? I think it's so underrated. He's got a lot of good qualities, but like his upper body strength especially is what helps him win. And
how many guys on the Eagles do they have where you're just like, yeah, they're the strongest guy at their position?
I mean, Hurts and AJ Brown are probably the only two that are like the strongest, I would say.
I don't know, man.
But Malata's pretty strong.
Malata's
like Goddard's
up
pretty
there.
Strong. It's a strong ass.
Their defense, like Carter
Kelsey's
and Davis.
Strong. Yeah, Carter and Davis. Yeah,
they're up there at least.
Everyone's really elite at it.
They live in the weight room, man. They just got the weight room team, and I respect that. I respect that. It works. They get after it. But I don't know. Are there any other big takeaways from this game, do you think? Or is that?
I thought the Dolphins' defensive line played a very good game.
Yeah.
They deserve some props.
They do.
But
Jalen Phillips kind of came out a little bit. Some big Jalen Phillips moments. Yeah, if their defensive line can start pulling things together, they get healthy in the secondary.
I think there's very much is a good defense within Miami.
They just never have it all together at once. It's like either the D line's not playing well or the corners are hurt. It's like, just bring it all together, and man, they could be nasty. But thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back. Got a couple live streams coming at you. We only have the one this week. We'll be doing the Tuesday film breakdown, and then we'll be doing we'll, of course, have our Thursday episode. But until then, thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.